Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I do think it's because it's a great event, or a great venue, and I'm happy to see so many people here today. With that, I'm just going to get started. My name is Arian Ravanbakhsh. I'm on the Records Management Policy team at the National Archives and Records Administration. So we're responsible for directing issuing all the guidance to federal agencies around M1921 and all the other NARA bulletins that we've promulgated over the years. And since this event is about M1921, I thought I'd start by just sort of laying out the roadmap of how we got here and what's actually in 1921. So first, let me do a show of hands. How many of you have read 1921? So half the room, that's good, that's good. For those of you who have, some of this might be old hat. For those of you who haven't, welcome to OMBM 1921. So through the goals and directives established by NARA and the administration, what we're trying to do at NARA is to transform records management across the federal government and make it more modern, efficient, and effective in decision-making and service to customers. These goals and directives require agencies to transition to electronic record keeping, which is a necessary first step to creating the digital archives of tomorrow. Before I go into the memo, I want to take a look back at some of the key policies that have been issued since really 2011. We started on this journey in 2011, 2010 with the previous administration's work, which put out some milestones and guidance. In August of 2012, NARA and the Office of Management and Budget pushed us forward on the path to fully electronic government with the issuance of the Managing Government Records Directive, which was M1218. Our goal then was to establish targets for the modernization of record keeping, promote electronic records management, and eliminate those print and file practices that I think have held us back over the years. In 2018, NARA released a 5-year strategic plan that stated our intent to issue policy and regulations to support this transition to fully digital electronic government. Also, more significantly, and probably why most of you are here today, NARA declared that after December 2022, we will no longer accept paper records into the archives and also would no longer accept transfers of paper into our record centers. So what is driving us to these goals and how did we get here? In 2018, the administration's government reform plan reflected NARA's strategic vision of a fully electronic government, including that December 2022 goal that I just outlined. This is significant. It broadened the impact of NARA's strategic goal across the government. So it was one place in an administration document going out to everyone in the federal government where there was reference to a NARA strategic goal, the strategic goal of 2022. In July, OMB and NARA released the Transition to Electronic Records, which is the M1921, which actually kind of superseded the Managing Government Records Directive that I referred to. If you go back and you read M1218, you'll find that a lot of those milestones and the work that document, even though it's been superseded by the new memo, was kind of core to where we are today because it did lay the foundation. And all of the requirements, all of the goals, all of the targets were largely met. The one target that was left in the original 2012 goal was that by the end of 2019, so by the end of this year, agencies would manage their permanent electronic records in electronic format. So that's the one goal that was sort of carried over because that was in 1218 and now it's in 1921. So that goal was just picked up and moved forward into the new document. But if you go back, you'll definitely see the direction we're heading. So I don't think it should come as no surprise to everyone, at least everyone in this room, who's been paying some attention that we're headed in this direction. Because we started on this direction almost 10 years ago, and here we are where we are today. So as I said, in July of 2019, the new M1921 came out. In M1921, it includes bold goals of no longer accepting paper and calls for agencies to close agency-operated record centers that store paper records. The new directive raises the bar for agencies who now must adjust processes and policies to focus on fully electronic records management. So now I'm going to go through some of the targets and some of the milestones that are in M1921. The new memo has 7 broad and aggressive targets for NARA and federal agencies to meet in the next 3 years. As I mentioned, the one goal for 2019 is that by the end of this calendar year, agencies must manage all their permanent electronic records in electronic formats, and that's the carryover goal. Other goals in the new memo include requirements for NARA to issue new regulations and guidance to support electronic records management. So we at NARA are committing to issuing new guidance, updating regulations, doing things that we can do to make it easier for agencies to achieve these targets. Some of that work, my colleague Courtney Anderson will talk about our Fermi project later this morning, and that's key to some of that work. That work is definitely things that we're doing there are going to help agencies reach these targets. NARA will work with the Office of Personnel Management to integrate electronic records management into position description standards for agencies' employees working in records management. Again, we understand that we need to professionalize the field a little bit in agencies and try to increase the role and responsibilities and level, if you will, of agency employees that are tasked with doing this work. Other targets established in the new memorandum for 2022 include the requirements to manage all permanent records electronically, not just those born digital. So that's where we start to have a conversation about digitization and how that's going to play out. The memorandum also requires agencies to explore the electronic management of temporary or disposable records, or if that's not practical or feasible, to store them in commercial storage facilities. We have been meeting constantly with agencies since the issuance of this memo to identify specific areas where further clarification or guidance is needed. NARA has agreed to develop those and issue supplemental clarifying guidance to agencies. We are still in the process of doing that. We hope to have some guidance, if not, at this point it's December. I can't, by the end of the calendar year, seems a little ambitious. But I do think in the first quarter of next year, you will be seeing additional specific guidance to help clarify some of the targets and requirements that are stated in 1921. So let us now discuss why these policies and requirements are so important to make this transition to fully electronic government. In short, it requires us to rethink how we work and what we focus on. This is what I believe our customers expect from us, and frankly is something we need to do at NARA to maintain our relevance as a national archives. We can no longer overextend ourselves by supporting dual processes for analog and electronic records. We need to focus our resources and attention on making the transition to electronic records. Towards that goal, we have set a clear marker for change, which is often necessary if we are to see the change happen. In doing so, it has forced us to explore and innovate in really important areas such as development of sophisticated tools and technologies that take automation to another level. So with that, I'll just leave. That's basically why we're doing it, how we're doing it, what we expect to get there. These are certainly my contact information, our records management website, which is where we put all the updated information. And if you're not following Records Express, I would suggest you do that. Our blog is where we communicate all of the policy directions. And with that, I'll just take a couple questions, burning questions, and if not, I'll stick around and I'll be part of the panel discussion at the end of the day.
Thanks, Arian. And if we can get the microphone ready, and I would sort of suggest if there are sort of specific questions, as he said, about the deadlines, we sort of tee up those kind of fill in the fact queries right now, and we'll leave the bigger picture stuff for the tail end of the day. But questions for our first speaker. Yes, ma'am. And I think why don't you tell me, and I'll tell people what the question is.
Oh, sure. I just didn't know if you had an update on how NARA is progressing on meeting their requirements.
Okay. About NARA's requirements and an update on how you're progressing.
So I think we, as I said, we are committed to meeting our 2020 requirement to issue new guidance, and part of that is sort of an expanded suite of guidance around digitization, that's on course for being issued. And as I kind of alluded to, our Fermi project is where a lot of that heavy lifting is being done. So you'll hear about those pieces later this morning. And I think that's, on balance, I think we are going to continue. I should step back and say I've been doing policy at NARA for 15 years, and we've continually tried to issue the best and most effective guidance to agencies. That's not going to stop even after the 2020 milestone. We're going to continue to try to issue guidance, find out where agencies are having concerns, find out what the challenges are, and if we can improve our guidance to help make agencies achieve these targets, we're certainly going to do that. So I don't think it's a one-stop shop for us, and it's going to be something we continue to do.
Burl Higwood, Source America, and the Ability One program. We're writing a report on the forecast. We're looking at putting something in place to help people buy these services. As you being the weatherman, what's coming? Do we need a shovel? Do we need a plow? I mean, is it a blizzard? Is it a flurry? What can we tell the Ability One Commission as far as the demand for these services that are coming in the next 2 years?
Aren't weathermen famous for not getting it right? I was sort of talking about this. I was sort of talking around this issue this morning. NARA has traditionally been in the. We're good at the what and the why, and we leave the how to agencies. So the how is sort of let agencies figure out what they need and what solutions they need and how they need to size those solutions. I think there's traditionally. Some of these challenges do require agencies to sort of rethink their processes, and that's kind of a heavy lift in some agencies, like stepping back and thinking about how they do that. There is momentum in the shared services community, and another of your speakers is going to talk about that. And I think there's opportunities there that the government can realize to make this not a blizzard, but maybe a DC snow squall where we all get to stay home for 3 hours or something.
Good way to extend the metaphor. Yes, in the back.
Eyal Bloomstein from Zimmerman Associates. We're a consulting company to federal agencies. One of the things that came up with M1921 is the requirement to close physical facilities that store records. Two approaches. One is to go to a commercial site. The second one, I think it's hand in hand, is also a massive digitization. Given that agencies don't necessarily have funds to digitize all of their records, given the fact that probably NARA is not going to, or the administration is not going to support the full extent of the digitization, how much pushback do you see from agencies, or what is the response to this requirement?
I think agencies are concerned with the requirement, and I would say I don't think we've gotten I think agencies are waiting for NARA, and this is on NARA. NARA has said that we're going to issue additional guidance around that specific target to flesh out some of the requirements, and I think some of our good friends in the federal records community are waiting to see what that looks like before they bring out their pitchforks, so to speak. That's very soon. We hope to have that out very soon. And in OMB 1921, there was a specific requirement that talked about the exceptions process per se, and that's really what we're talking about here. And that is a responsibility for NARA to issue that piece of guidance, and that's forthcoming.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you? My question kind of piggybacks off this gentleman's question. It's more about funding. I understand the requirements and what's coming in 2022. That's all great. However, I believe probably the majority of the people in the room are struggling with funding issues. Is NARA, the archivist or the U.S. Records Officer, prepared to go in front of Congress and let Congress know, hey, 2022 is coming. We're not accepting any more paper records. We need you all to fund and push for records management funding and increase in funding across the federal government.
So I can't speak for them personally, but what I will say is one of the requirements and why we engaged OMB in this process is to make sure that OMB, which controls purse strings across the federal government, that they are aware that this is coming, and they are going to be an active partner on how we get to that. And I think specifically for how agencies meet that, some of that needs to be, I think they're aware, and I think it just needs to see, we'll see how it plays out.
Okay, other questions for Arian? Before we move to our next speaker, sorry, I'm standing right in front of that speaker, which is not helping. Let me move over here so we don't get feedback for everyone. Just before we break, you put up a few of the resources here of places to go learn more, but there are also sort of working groups coming together around this challenge that NARA is orchestrating. How do people from other agencies that are not already part of that community get involved in those discussions?
So yes, there are a couple working groups sort of tackling this problem. I think the largest one, or the one that's got the most traction, is actually one that NARA does not coordinate or lead. It's the Federal Records Officer Network. They have a page on OMB Max. So for those of you that have access to OMB Max, the wiki site, you can search for Federal Records Officer Network and get engaged with the community there. There are a couple people who will approve you for membership into that community. And that's where a lot of these things are being discussed. We at NARA, we continue to do sort of our bi-monthly records and information discussion groups, our bridge meetings. We'll have one. We do it bi-monthly. We are going to cancel the December meeting, so I can't plug that meeting next week. But the next meeting will be in February, and that's that we do. So if you can't come down to McGowan, our theater, we stream those meetings online, and we take questions. That's another forum where we talk about these records management issues, and you can meet your colleagues. There are also, NARA does run a Federal Records Management Council, which some of the larger agencies have representation on. That's more of a closed group. But we do occasionally put out tools. If you go to Records Express, you'll find a digitization tool that was developed by the Federal Records Management Council, and I think we put that up earlier this year, May, June-ish, kind of in the summer kind of time frame, because that's when they were done. And that's another community that we can leverage to try to help agencies get there.
All right, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.